All right, I want to do a little walkthrough of the code if you're interested in getting into the details of how I have implemented Google Charts. So let's dig in here. So this is the body of the GC package. I'm probably going to rename these files to GC just to be consistent with that. I'll leave this Google Charts because I think it's obviously more explanatory. It's a little dangerous to use GC. I could see other people having packages named GC. But I like it to be short, and I'm gonna go with GC. Hopefully, I don't have to change that. So we have a bunch of global variables, which is probably a red flag for a lot of people. And so if I'm going to refactor this, there's a chance that we're going to make some data structures, and then we're going to pass those around instead of using this. So that's one improvement that could be made. But I didn't want to make it too complicated right off the bat. So we've got these globals. The idea is that you're going to call this from a single block of code. And so that all of these globals that you're setting are going to be available to you and you alone for the time of that transaction. Nobody else is going to change them. It's your session. And you're going to get your values immediately. Now, there is a little bit of a break because when you get your divs, that's going to be a different block of code on the page, and that may, I don't know how it works, but that may end up being a different session, SQL session. And so what I'm thinking there, we're going to, you're going to have your session ID. And so I think what's going to happen is maybe you're going to request those divs for your session ID. And if for some reason that the current divs are not for that session, then we'll go ahead and go to a table in the database. So when these are rendered, it will put it in a table in a database, but you're not going to read from that table. I don't know if that makes it any faster or not. The read, in theory, should be pretty fast, but I think that's what we're going to do. Because there is a problem with that, because you're getting your divs separately. And the other thing we do is just do a miss and throw an error and say, basically your divs are no longer there. The other thing we could do is the divs are pretty much the session ID and a number. So you could we could make the div interface such that you generate those, like they're not actually stored. You just say, hey, here's divs for this with these numbers, and that comes back. And that's a way we can eliminate the database altogether. I kind of like that. It's a little clunky on the interface side, but it eliminates having to have anything in the database at this point, which I kind of like. Now, the database is cool because we can dynamically update stuff behind the scenes, and then it doesn't need to be rendered. It's already there, which is going to make the front end faster. So we are going to have a database, probably a database table at some point storing data. So these are all things I'm thinking about. So once we get past all these globals and we are aware that there's dangers in using them, we have a bunch of arrays, chart not in progress, array series not in progress. These are, basically they're asserts, but they're maybe not named the best because it doesn't actually raise the error unless the column count is locked. So if the column count is locked, then we are going to raise these errors. I want to say GitHub Copilot is awesome because I literally wrote like part of one of these, and then it just knew that as I began to write the rest of these, I could just write the name and it would fill out the rest, including this little message. So those might get changed to assert not. So if I do raise row count is 0, I'm going to do assert row count is not 0, basically. So maybe we'll refactor those and just turn those into asserts because I think that is more common in other programming languages where they have those types of asserts on in your functions and procedures. So this is a template. I've been using this pattern a lot. I needed to, because we're dealing with a lot of data, we needed to, when we do a replace on a template, we needed to have a CLOB replace, which I found a version out on Stack Overflow or kludged one together, and I've added that to ArcSQL. So that's in there now. part of ArcSQL, you can use that. So instead of having to go out and find the exact same thing I found, format the code and test it or whatever, it's right here in ArcSQL if you want to use it. We do inject the loader.js right here because it needs to be before this. And when I was doing it on the Apex page, it was putting it after. So it wasn't. This was basically the Google object was not being found here. So we have these tags, and we're going to do a find and replace, CLOB find and replace. Now, one way you could get rid of deal with the CLOB find and replace is you could put this together in parts. So you would put this together, then you'd put your callbacks on, and you basically don't do finds and replaces, just piece it together. But I like the find and replace, although doing find and replace with CLOBs might be a little slow. But so far, it's not a problem. So there is an optimization possibility there, but we don't think we need to worry about it yet. And so we have a callback template, and then we have a function. This is the general function template. And these are going to have a lot of changes as I figure out the interface here. This is first draft, first cut version .001. So we have a init chart, which we just init the state of a bunch of variables at that size. We have our start series, which also inits variables. And we have an add chart. So this is how we add a chart. I'm not going to get into, there's not much to see here. We see our raises. You can't add a chart if a series is not in progress. You can't add a chart if the column count is 0 because you need to define your columns before you add your chart. The assumption is you're adding a bunch of charts for the same types of columns. So we don't want to have adding the columns for every chart. Obviously, it can get kind of buggy, like on the state, like, when I init a chart, do I want to clear the columns? No, I don't, but I do want to reset the column. The chart count. No, I don't want to reset chart count. You get the idea. It gets a little tricky. So we have these are areas where you could potentially have bugs, and bugs are really easy to create there. So here's an example of using CLOB replace. So at the end of this, we're replacing in the callback. What are we doing? We're taking callback template and changing the function names to a CLOB because that's what that requires, and then replacing it with the G function name. Okay. Anyway, get the idea. So that's kind of the pattern. We have add column, add data, and chart. This is where we kind of build the whole chart. And then we have the end series where we're kind of building everything. And then we have our get.js, get divs, which is just returning those values, those global variables for all of our JS. But we have this get chunk. And so this is where when we come back to the UI, we can't do it all at once. It's too big. We have to return smaller. We have to return varchar 2. And so we're going to keep calling this until it returns null. That happens down here. And until then, it's returning chunks of our GJS and moving. And of course, this is all happening in the same session, so none of this should technically change on us. But you get the idea. So that's basically it. Certainly room for improvement, and that's what I'll be doing. And we're going to be improving the interface, expanding the interface. We really want to get it down to all you need to do is say, hey, I want to create some charts, some line charts, and the column names, and here's the SQL. And that's basically all you need to do to render a bunch of charts. Okay. That's all I got, and you can get that in the library Google Charts folder right now if you want to start playing with it. All right, thanks. Bye.